Yes, welcome back to the Sports Show. Hey, Baz, you know, and you've been across this a long time, mate. You've been around. Every now and then you get a journalist that everyone highly respects.
Yes.
Our next guest, mate, is one of the best in South Australia. Number one for the Advertiser, but
clearly.
And sometimes it's easy to say that because he's sitting next to me right now. Andrew Capel, welcome, mate. Thanks for coming in. But
thanks, Phil.
My point is that whenever I talk to the footy guys, mate, there's two blokes they talk about that are highly respected. It's yourself and Mike Sheehan.
Yes.
So it's pretty good company that you're in. What do you put that down to, mate? Because I'm not expecting you to bag any of the other journalists, but you guys are held in fairly good regard, and it's getting harder and harder as a journalist to be held that way.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, mate. I appreciate the kind words. I think just, the respect value. Obviously, I'm out in the public quite a bit, so I get to meet a lot of these people that I interview, but to me, it's also about not doing the wrong thing by them. If they tell me something off the record, I'll make sure it stays off the record. I'll only write two things. First of all, what I absolutely believe in. And secondly, if I'm doing the right thing by the person, I won't break any trust. Absolutely, I won't. The other part of this also too is you've still got to be critical at times because you are writing for the public and your newspaper and radio, whatever it is. So you've still got to tell the truth and be critical of teams and players if things aren't going the right way. But as long as I think you critique them correctly, and don't just make up stories or headlines for the sake of it, I think generally you'll get the respect that you deserve, and I certainly respect every athlete that I speak to, so hopefully that's reciprocated. Yeah,
no, I get that feedback, mate, and I get that feedback as well. I think you're becoming a dinosaur though, mate. And unfortunately, because it appears, just listening to what you said then, is what you write is factual. A lot of them now write opinions, and because of the change in the media, you've been a big part of that. Social media, it's like, who can get the story out first without any of the facts? Has that been a difficult transition for you to compete with that and still stay on the agenda you just spoke about?
It is tough and I don't like it. The word you're looking for probably is clickbait.
Yep.
These days, a lot of clickbait. A lot of people put stuff out there to get it first rather than necessarily get it right, whereas I work on the complete opposite theory of that. I would rather get it right and be late than throw something out there that's wrong. We see that too much these days, which is very unfortunate. I don't like it. I take the theory. I just try to do my work to the best of my ability.
Yeah, 30 years in the game would probably help because you have been in the game a long time, and
it's actually it's over 40 now.
Over 40.
I've just turned 56. I started writing when I was 15. My dad, David, was a long time editor of the news and the Sunday Mail, involved in sport and also the old Sunday Mail fishing column. So I grew up in the old news building on North Terrace, going in as a 5 and 6 year old, running copy. Those days, the room was full of smoke. Everyone smoked. Typewriter, it was very noisy. Typewriters everywhere. The journalists would get copy, and a young copy boy would run over, grab a yellow piece of paper, put it in the chute, which would go to the print centre, which was next door.
Amazing, isn't it?
So great days. So at the age of 15, I was still at school, in year 10 at school, and I was listening to the radio, doing the Santful, the 5 games for the Sunday Times newspaper in Perth. We'll listen to the radio, do all the best players, goal kickers, riders, store in a typewriter, and then ring the copy through to Perth.
Wow.
We weren't getting the paper in Adelaide, so I would drive to the airport with my dad on a Sunday morning, buy the paper, so I had a copy of it. So I was 15 then, so technically in the industry for 41 years, which is a long time, but it's gone very quick too.
When you say that you say what you think and you write what you think, have you upset anybody that's actually come to you and go, hey mate, you write that again, I might take your head clean off? Or have you had any flack from, I suppose over the years you would have.
You would have, Phil, you would have as well at times. I've never done anything deliberately wrong. Occasionally you might make a mistake, or they've told you something and then thought afterwards, maybe I shouldn't have said that. That has come back. Look, especially in the early years, many times. So I learnt the hard way. Absolutely I did, especially the Adelaide Crows, very early on. John Reid, who I get on really well with. I love John Reid, but as you know, he can fly off the handle pretty easily. I had a couple of runs with Matt Rendell, who was a recruiting manager, obviously. I'm good friends with Matt. Our kids went to the same school at Grange Primary School, but I remember writing a story on Patrick Dangerfield when the Crows recruited him at pick 10 from memory, in a draft where his reputation wasn't that great at the time because he's obviously a good hard ball winner, but his kicking was was erratic, which to a degree it still is a little bit, but he's been a fantastic player. I said that Patrick Dangerfield had better be a good footballer because they've overlooked Brad Ebert, who I wrote would play 200 games, which he has for West Coast and Port Adelaide. But you can't argue with that selection of Dangerfield. But I remember turning up at Crows training the next morning at Thebarton Oval. They were training, and I heard these footsteps coming towards me very loudly. And Matt Rendell went berserk, saying I was unkind to Paddy Dangerfield, who was doing a presser half an hour later, and we shook hands and he was great. I ended up helping him with his column for the Advertiser for many years. But at the time, Rendell tore strips off me in front of training. Training stopped. Neil Craig looked up and said, "Mate, are you okay, Andrew?" Because Rendell could fly off the handle. I said, "Mate, that's fine. That comes with the territory. Water for ducks back." I showed him respect. He showed me some back. But the whole training stopped when Matty went berserk for 5 minutes. But that comes with the territory.
If you let that get you, though, you don't stay in the job, do you?
Correct.
If that gets to you, then you're out. You don't do 40 years of that if someone has a crack at you. So, as you say, part of the territory.
I always work on the theory that in your job, to gain respect of the public, you do have to give some criticism. You can't. It's not all roses, obviously. So if you give it out, you've got to be able to cop it as well, which I think I can do.
Yeah.
But I do know a lot of journalists who are happy to give out criticism. When it comes back the other way,
not good.
They can't stand it, which is really the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever written or had to write an article that you wished you didn't have to write? You know, where the editor comes in and says, "You've got to write this one, AC." And you go, "This is what I really don't want to get across."
Yeah, many times. You come across, obviously, but you do your research. Sometimes you'll think immediately, I don't want to write that.
Yeah.
But you have to be professional. If your editor tells you to write it, you must do it. So you just write it to the best of your ability. You check all the facts, you go to all your sources, and you make sure you get it as spot on as you possibly can.
I mean, you touched on it. 41 years, a long time to be around footy. Whenever you say, give us your opinion on your top 3 or 4 players, Ebert and Robin always come up straight away. So we'll leave them out of the equation just for a moment. Over the journey, who have been a couple where you've gone, I just love to go and cover this game because I just enjoy watching this bloke play?
Yeah, I grew up being a Glenelg supporter.
Yep.
I was born at Glenelg Hospital, so as a young
pretty
buck,
happy with this year, aren't you? Yeah.
Well, so far, 13 zip, going beautifully. So Fred Phillips and Graham Corns were my childhood heroes.
Yep.
High-flying forwards and could take a great mark, obviously. In my journalistic career, the players I've had most enjoyment out of covering, and I covered their first AFL game and also their last, which is exciting. But the 2 players I enjoyed the most will be Andrew McLeod.
Yeah.
I interviewed him when he came to Adelaide, and I remember him from Darwin. I remember him saying that his dad dropped him off at the doorstep and went back to Darwin and said, "Make a career of your footy."
Yep.
And he had tears in his eyes. Remarkable story. To see him play his first game, kick a really nice goal against Hawthorn, you remember it at Football Park, and then have such a fabulous career, 2 Norm Smith medalists.
Great player.
Amazing, great bloke, great player. And then Gavin Wanganane's the other. Saw him tear Glenelg apart in the 1990 grand final. You remember very well as a young teenager. Have such a great career, win a Brownlow medal, win flags with Essendon and Port Adelaide. Again, a fantastic person. So they're probably the 2 players that I've had the most joy to covering.
You talk about those blokes, and they're great players. If you take Ebert and Robin out of the SANFL, there's a couple of blokes who didn't win medals that would probably be right up there as well. Blokes like Rick Davies and Baggy, even Paul Bagshaw.
Peter Marker was
Peter Marker, another one. Very unlucky, but probably around at the wrong time.
Yes.
Probably sitting around.
Well, I think he was runner-up a couple of times.
There you go.
Yeah.
But the SANFL back then was just full of them on it. No matter what game you went to see, there was a star. There was stars everywhere. It didn't matter which ground you were at. So Bagshaw, Davies, to me, as a Port bloke, you go, oh, gee.
You remember the 1976 grand final, of course, when he...
That's all we got time for. Thank you, Andrew. Nice of you to come in, mate. Yeah, good on you, mate.
Yeah. You do remember
I
that?
do remember it well,
absolutely.
mate. Because that day, I think he showed just how good a player he was, Rick Davies. It was just one of the most unbelievable single performances I've seen.
Yeah, he took the game over by himself.
Massively, and great player.
Well, the 1970s footy for the Sandford was as good as I've seen.
Exactly.
And sort of that inspired my love for the game.
I think Russell Ebert said that Port's 1980 side was the best team he's ever played in, which is a big, big statement given the amount of talent he played with at North Melbourne.
Yes.
So SANFL was very, very strong through the 70s, through that decade. Yeah.
All right, we need to get to a break. We've just scratched the surface with Andrew Capel, so we'll be back in a moment.